Hello and welcome to this vlog here at Scotch Whisky Auctions. Today we're in a slightly different position, but we're still the same exciting vlog. Big Peatrie here again to just take you through these amazing whiskies that we have in this month's auction. Now once again we've got a cracking lineup of some really rare and hard to get hold of whiskies. Whiskies, again, always representative of something else, because once again we are dealing with an absolute glut, a stonking amount of lovely, lovely whiskey in this auction. But before I get carried away with too much hyperbole and too many hand gestures, let's get on with the vlog. Now first up we have this lovely bottle from Bulloch & Wade, and this is their gold label. Now Bulloch & Wade are one of those sort of semi-mythical names within the Scotch whisky industry. Grand producers back in the day, back around the turn of the century, from the 19th into the 18th into the 19th century, but they were not able to outrun the increasing price of coal, the price of barley, and of course prohibition, that great failed experiment. So unfortunately they went into liquidation. Distillers Company Limited came along, swept up their belongings, kept the name Bulloch & Wade for a long time, but this bottle here is in the remnants from the 1920s, so this is around the time, the end of Bulloch & Wade. So a cracking example, you're going to hear this an awful lot this month, of liquid history. Next up we have another blend. This is black and white. Now I've started the vlog this month with two blends because these were right at the forefront of the explosion of when Scotch took over from brandy and became the classic high-end spirit drink. So these were the brands that were driving Scotch whisky across the world, not just inside the UK, across the world, to becoming the premier spirit. And they are brilliant examples of a style of whisky that isn't distilled now. Distilleries that didn't exist, or don't exist anymore, are contained within these bottles. This one here is black and white, and this one was bottled in 1928. So we're starting this month's auction with two bottles from the 1920s. Next up, continuing that theme of driving Scotch across the world, no company has done more to drive Scotch across the world than Johnnie Walker. And then what we have here is one of the bottles from the Johnnie Walker's the Johnnie Walker Director's Blend. Now we've got all 6 bottles collected together, and this one here is the 2010, which is dealing with the rich smell of autumn fruit. And seeing as we're heading into autumn now, I thought I would pull this one out to show you from 2010. The pinnacle of the blender's art is really what you're looking at here. With probably the greatest stocks of any company to play with, they have taken their time, and over the series of the different bottlings, some are done in virgin oak, some deal with Islay, they give you an example of what can be done with real skill with whisky as your ingredient to create something really quite wonderful. Really quite wonderful doesn't really do justice to our next bottle. It is a 1939 50-year-old Glenfiddich. Now this one hit the headlines, not this particular one, but this bottling hit the headlines a good couple of years ago now, when at an Italian auction it sold for 99,999,999 lira. Now that's unlikely to ever happen again, A, because lira is part of the euro, but also because it's probably going to start getting up into that region on a regular basis, because Glenfiddich was the distillery that drove the single malt revolution. They were the ones in the 60s, 70s who started bottling single malt and really actively pushing it, moving it away from the blends. This is whisky that was laid down, a number of casks representative of George Grant's children, and then bottled at 50 years later. So from one of the world's biggest, most famous distilleries, one heavyweight bottle. Next up we have two bottles which were bottled for the Italian market. One is a 1962 Ord, and the other is a 1960 Strath Islay. Both these distilleries are more synonymous with blending again. Ord with Johnnie Walker, and Strath Islay with Chivas. But what's amazing about these is that at the point when these were being distilled and bottled, and the single malt market was big in the UK, but it wasn't that focused. There wasn't maybe as much interest in single cask bottlings and specific distilleries distilled from different vintages. The Italian market was really already getting quite focused on the nuances and the subtleties that could be found from different vintages, different casks. The 62 Ord here is from Samaroli, and I talked last month about Samaroli, about how important they were in highlighting some of the finest casks, and according to many, some of the finest casks ever bottled. And this one here is for Pinarolo, and this was bottled 24 years in the 1980s. So A, I love the look of this bottle, but B, these are really great examples of whisky that was being chosen by people outside of Scotland who are already focusing in on the depth and the quality that single malt Scotch could offer. Next up, we have what's called the Glendronach, and this is from the 1930s. So a distillery that we now know under recent renaissance of Billy Walker has come right back up into the firmament. They've got some beautiful single cask sherried whiskies. This one's from the 1930s, and it's got the Glendronach with a lovely blue stripe over it. And what I love particularly about this one is that it is self-describes itself as most suitable for medicinal purposes. So you can have a wee dram of this and hopefully live forever. It's another cracking example of liquid history. And with that liquid history phase, we come to Kurosawa. Now, Kurosawa in the last 5 years, as we all know, has blown up. There's some of the most incredibly sought-after bottlings going. Such a distillery that had such a high focus on quality, and to have lost it over the years, one of the great tragedies in the whisky world. But what we have here are two very different bottles. First up, this is a 21-year-old that has been bottled by Ocean. Now, Ocean was the brand owned by Mercier, who very rarely bottled Kurosawa as a single malt. It mainly went into their blends. And this one was distilled in 1965. So some of the earliest examples of Kurosawa that we have bottled. I'm being quite delicate with this one because it's quite a delicate bottle and we have to be quite careful with it. Next up, in a far more robust decanter style bottle, this is a 45-year-old Kurosawa that was bottled from a cask which is rumoured to be the last cask of distillation from 1967. So this is a stunning lineup of whisky from right across the world, right across the years. But ladies and gentlemen, once again, you better get in and have a look around in this auction, because we have brandies, cognacs that are aged, that have liquid that is nearly 200 years old in it, in the Richard Hennessy bottle. We have a stunning array of whiskies right across the world, from Japan, from America, from Ireland, some absolutely stunning bottles. So please, as always, get in, have a look around, and remember, don't lose your bottle.